HOA Karen took over my driveway for her wedding dance, so I turned it into a slip and slide. Part 1. The note that was never sent. It all started with a white dress flying through the air, like a soap-covered ghost surrendering to gravity. The bride hit the tarp with a wet, glorious splat. Gasps turned into laughter. Phones shot up like fireworks. She slid 10 feet, arms flailing, sparkly heels shooting off in opposite directions. And then, silence, only broken by the sharp, furious shriek of a voice everyone in the neighborhood feared. Who did this to my daughter? That was Karen, queen of clipboards, dictator of driveways, president of the HOA, and self-proclaimed master of community morale. I stood at the top of my porch, sunglasses down, soda in hand, and said just loud enough for every camera mic to catch it. "Welcome to my driveway, Karen. Hope you brought your non-slip shoes." But let's rewind. 48 hours earlier, I was doing something peaceful, simple. Just oiling my '68 Mustang, minding my own business, when I noticed something strange. Twinkling lights being strung across my maple tree. I squinted. Then came the van. White. Logoless. The kind that always means either a wedding setup or someone about to sell questionable ice cream. From the back, they unloaded what looked like a dance floor. And they were laying it directly on my driveway. I walked out, confused, wiping my hands on a rag. Before I could say anything, a woman with a clipboard barked at me. "You must be Jake. We're just laying out the dance area for the wedding." Karen said it's all cleared. I blinked. "Karen, who?" She laughed like I'd just told a joke. "Karen Simmons, HOA president? Oh, that Karen." My jaw clenched. I didn't clear anything, but the woman was already waving behind her. "Jake says it's good." I stood there, mouth open. And just like that, my driveway became a wedding venue. That night I knocked on Karen's door. She answered in a satin robe, smirk already in place. "Jake, everything okay?" I asked her, point blank. What the heck was going on with the crew outside my house? She tilted her head like she was talking to a lost puppy. "Oh, didn't you get my note? We're just using your driveway for the wedding dance. 2 hours tops, practically a community event." I stared at her. "No, Karen, I didn't agree to that. I didn't get any note. And I want it gone." Her smile thinned, but didn't disappear. "Well, everything's already booked. It'd be such a hassle to cancel now, and I assumed you'd be generous. For the neighborhood. You know, like you always are." Generous? This was the same woman who fined me for painting my mailbox, one shade too dark. I looked her in the eyes and said it as plainly as I could. "You have until tomorrow morning to get everything off my property, or it's trespassing." She nodded sweetly, said she understood. And the next morning? The lights were still there. The ribbons were still tied around my shrubs. There was even a folding arch. And someone had plugged a mini fridge into my outdoor outlet. They were doing dance rehearsals on my property, like they owned it. That's when something inside me snapped. No more arguing, no more warnings. If Karen wanted a dance floor on my driveway, she'd get one, just not the kind she expected. Part 2. The tarp, the soap, and the setup of justice. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, I'd already passed that stage. No, I was focused, calm, maybe a little too calm. Around 10 p.m., I rolled out my plan like a blueprint for suburban warfare. First stop, the hardware store. 2 carts, stacked with waterproof tarps, heavy-duty hose connectors, a garden sprayer, 6 bottles of industrial-strength foam soap, a couple kiddie pools, and about a dozen pool noodles, for good measure. As the cashier raised an eyebrow, I smiled and said, "Neighborhood project?" And it was. When I got home, I waited until the world was asleep, until the fairy lights on my maple tree blinked like they were winking at me. Then I got to work. First, I carefully removed their rented dance floor, every last plank, and stashed it in my locked shed. No damage, just safe and out of the way. They'd get it back. Eventually. Next, I unrolled the tarps across my driveway like I was preparing a runway, a very soapy, slippery runway. I pinned the edges with landscape staples, hooked the hose to my outdoor spigot, and poured foam concentrate like I was baptizing the concrete. The final touch? My Bluetooth speaker system, a playlist titled Karen's Boogie Disaster, Track 1, Footloose, Track 2, Wipeout, Track 3, a remix of the Chicken Dance, with extra bass. At 2 a.m., I stepped back, looked at my creation, and grinned. My driveway didn't just shine under the moonlight. It shimmered. It sparkled. It looked like the surface of a soap-slicked lake, ready to claim the first pair of heels that dared to step on it. The next morning, I played it cool. Mowed the lawn, trimmed a few bushes, even waved at Karen's cousin when she walked by holding a box of fake peonies. No one suspected a thing. But beneath their feet was destiny. Around 3 p.m., the guests began to arrive. Shiny shoes, stiff smiles, high heels tapping along the sidewalk. One guy actually said, "Wow, this driveway looks amazing. Did you have it waxed?" I just smiled. Something like that. By 4 o'clock, the music started. Karen stepped out, decked in sequins, dragging her daughter along like it was prom night and she was the queen. She gave the DJ a thumbs up and clapped for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced proudly, "the father-daughter dance." People cheered. Phones came out, and the bride stepped forward. 1 step, 2 steps, then disaster. Her feet flew forward like someone had yanked the carpet from under her, her arms pinwheeled in slow motion, and her body lifted clean off the ground, sparkling gown flaring like a parachute. Then, splat. She landed flat, dress soaked, sliding like a curling stone straight down the tarp. Gasps erupted. A groomsman tried to help, slipped and took out the groom like a bowling pin. And just as the chaos bloomed, came the sound that started it all. Karen's scream, loud, furious. "Who did this to my daughter?" I stepped out onto my porch, sipped my soda, and said, calm as a lake in winter, "Welcome to my driveway, Karen." Part 3. The splash heard around the neighborhood. Karen's shriek. It echoed through the cul-de-sac like a foghorn of fury. "He did this! He sabotaged the wedding!" She pointed one trembling, bubble-smeared finger in my direction, as if her glitter-soaked rage alone could undo physics. And then, she took a step forward, a bold, slippery mistake. Her high heel met foam, and Karen launched. Not gracefully, not dramatically. No, it was pure chaos. Her arms flailed, her face twisted, and then, splash, straight into the kiddie pool I'd filled with suds and biodegradable glitter. Glitter. That sticks. The kind you'll still find behind your ears a week later, even after 4 showers and a mild identity crisis. She surfaced, gasping, mascara dripping down her cheeks like war paint. A foam flower stuck to her forehead like a cursed crown. I stayed on the porch, didn't move, didn't blink, just sipped my soda. And let the music do the talking, because at that exact moment, the DJ accidentally triggered track 3 on the playlist. Yup. The Chicken Dance, with subwoofers. It blasted across the driveway like a marching band on bath salts. Some guests tried to run, others tried to help, but just ended up in their own slapstick routines. Slipping, sliding, squealing. One guy spun in a full 360, smacked into a decorative lantern, and vanished into a pile of ribbons. Another attempted a gallant rescue and ended up launching a tray of mini quiches into the air. And the bride? She sat at the edge of the lawn, soaked from the waist down, shoes gone, makeup running, just staring into the void like she was reconsidering all her life choices at once. Karen? She rose from the foam, hair plastered to her face, eyes burning with soap and vengeance. She stormed back up the driveway, squish, 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 every step sounding like two wet sponges fist-fighting. "You'll be hearing from my attorney," she bellowed. I raised my soda in a lazy salute. "Tell them to bring non-slip shoes." Laughter rippled through the crowd. First a chuckle, then a snort, then full-blown, uncontrollable howling from the guest who hadn't already fled. Even the DJ leaned away from the table, hands in the air like, "I didn't sign up for this, man." And then, Karen pulled out her phone. You could feel it, that shift in energy. She jabbed the screen with a trembling thumb and screamed, "I'm calling the police!" Gasps. Even the best man stopped mid-slip. I leaned on the porch railing and calmly said, "Perfect. They'll love to see the illegal wedding venue you built on someone else's property." She hesitated, just for a second, and in that pause, in that delicious, glitter-dripping silence, one of the little kids ran through the foam yelling, "Best party ever!" A bubble cannon went off behind him like confetti at a parade. And I smiled, because this wasn't chaos, this was karma. Part 4. The cops, the camera, and Karen's collapse. It didn't take long, just 10 minutes after Karen's theatrical 911 call. The squad car rolled in, lights flashing, engine humming like karma on 4 wheels. 2 officers stepped out. One was Officer Kelly, tall, serious, all business. The other, Officer Brenda, the same Brenda who handed out glow sticks at our block parties and once helped my neighbor's cat out of a gutter using a broom, a can of tuna, and sheer willpower. Karen ran up to them like she was reporting a bank robbery. "Officers! Thank God! He's created a hazardous slip-and-slide death trap and destroyed my daughter's wedding!" She was soaked, head to toe, bubbles still clinging to her sequined blouse, a trail of glitter behind her like a tragic fairy. Officer Kelly raised an eyebrow. "Officer Brenda?" She turned to me with a slow smirk. "Hey, Jake, hosting a neighborhood event?" I tipped my soda. "Just washing the driveway, on my property, with some guests I didn't invite." Karen's mouth opened, but Officer Brenda raised a hand. "Ma'am, is this your house?" Karen blinked. "Well, no, but did you have written permission to use this space?" I left a note." Brenda turned to me. "You get a note, Jake?" I laughed softly. "I got a lie, and I've got the screenshots, security cam footage, and a copy of her fake HOA newsletter to prove it." Karen's face dropped. Her spine straightened like she was trying to hold the collapsing house of cards together through posture alone. Officer Kelly spoke next, calm but firm. "Ma'am, unless the homeowner filed a complaint or a crime's been committed, this is a civil matter." Karen sputtered. But the guests, the injuries, the glitter." Just then, one of the groomsmen walked past with a soaked sash tied around his head like a war trophy. He looked at the officers, shrugged, and said, "Honestly, it was kinda awesome." Laughter rippled across the lawn again. Karen's eye twitched. She pointed at me like I'd summoned Satan himself. "He ruined everything. He should be arrested." Brenda sighed and said, "Ma'am, you're not just on someone else's property without permission. You're on camera doing it." Then she glanced at the bubble-blasted scene and added, "And frankly, you're lucky he's not pressing charges." Karen turned crimson. Not pink, not blush. Crimson. Her jaw clenched, then unclenched, then clenched again, like her brain couldn't decide whether to scream, faint, or commit light arson. "Finally," she hissed. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." I smiled. "Make sure they bring a mop." Officer Kelly coughed, definitely hiding a laugh. Karen turned, heels squishing, pride leaking with every foamy step, and stormed off toward the soggy altar of her failed power play. Guests awkwardly peeled away. One flower girl tossed a sponge like it was a bouquet and yelled, "Wedding's over! Let's go home!" And as the crowd thinned, as the music faded, as the last of the bubbles drifted into the sunset, I stood on my porch, calm, dry, victorious. Because Karen didn't just lose her wedding dance that day, she lost control, and the whole neighborhood saw it. Part 5. The aftermath, the HOA, and the petition that changed everything by morning. The chaos had dried up, but the drama? Oh, it had only just begun. I woke up to the smell of fresh-cut grass and the sweet, sweet silence of a Karenless street. No clipboard, no wedding music, no shrieking demands about visual harmony. But I knew that peace wouldn't last. Not with Karen. Sure enough, by noon, the HOA message board was lighting up like a Christmas tree dipped in kerosene. Subject lines like, "Urgent community concern, disturbing conduct on private property. Can we find someone for Bubbles?" Karen was already trying to spin the story. She painted herself as the gracious host, the victim of a calculated act of humiliation, and, I kid you not, described my slip-and-slide driveway as a hostile weapon of social disruption. Seriously, she made a tarp and dish soap sound like military-grade sabotage. But here's the kicker. She didn't stop at the HOA board. She started going door to door, in person, knocking, trying to rally support like she was running for HOA president of the world. Some neighbors listened politely, others shut the door in her face before she could say, "Community cohesion." One guy, Doug, retired fire chief, shorts in any weather, told her, "Lady, that slip and slide was the most fun this street's had in a decade." Karen's jaw reportedly unhinged like a cartoon villain. But here's where it really got good. That afternoon, I got a knock on my door. It wasn't Karen. It was Lydia, one of the quieter board members, usually too timid to even vote on mailbox colors. She handed me a clipboard, but not that clipboard. This one had a form and a title that made my eyes light up. Petition for emergency vote. HOA leadership review. President Karen Simmons. My eyebrows went up. Lydia whispered, "I didn't start it, but I signed it." Behind her, 2 more neighbors appeared. Then 3 more. Then 5. They weren't angry. They weren't loud. They just looked ready, tired of being ruled by someone who thought street trees should be symmetrical and mailboxes had to match her mood. Within 2 hours, 36 signatures. By sunset, over 50. And by the end of the week, 72. That was more than enough to force a vote. Karen tried to block it, of course. She claimed it was illegally gathered, emotionally biased, and based on lies spread by a man with a hose fetish. Yes, that was actually in her written response. But the board? They didn't bite. Too many people had seen the footage. Too many had slipped on soap and laughed about it. They scheduled the vote for Friday evening at the clubhouse, and for the first time in HOA history, the community wasn't dreading the meeting. They were excited. It felt like we were finally pushing back against the dictatorship of pastel blazers and passive-aggressive memos. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. And when Friday came, let's just say, the sparkle of glitter was still in the air. Part 6. The vote, the fall, and the flamingo that witnessed it all. Friday night arrived, and the air was buzzing like a soda can about to burst. The HOA clubhouse, usually a sleepy room for coffee-stained agendas and lawn-height debates, was packed. Folding chairs were dragged out of storage, neighbors leaned against walls, some even brought popcorn. And there, dead center under the fluorescent lights, sat Karen, draped in her signature pastel, lips tight, sunglasses on, indoors. She looked like a washed-up diva waiting to reclaim the throne. To her right, 2 loyal board members. To her left, an empty chair. Symbolic, or just bad seating logistics? Hard to say. I walked in with my binder under one arm, and my lucky inflatable flamingo keychain clipped to my belt loop. Destiny, the icon of foam-fueled justice, was here in spirit. Mr. Callahan, the HOA chair, tapped the mic. Thank you all for coming. Tonight's agenda has one item, and I think you know what it is. The room chuckled. Even Karen's own allies shifted in their seats. Callahan continued. This community has called for a vote regarding the continued leadership of HOA President Karen Simmons, following numerous complaints, an unsanctioned event, and alleged property misuse. Karen scoffed. Alleged? Really? We're going to crucify me over a tarp and some dish soap? Someone in the back whispered, and glitter. Karen's eyes narrowed. I raised my hand. May I speak? Callahan nodded. I stood, calm, collected, and then said the one sentence I'd been waiting to drop. I didn't sabotage a wedding. I protected my property. The crowd nodded. A few clapped. Doug coughed something that sounded suspiciously like damn right. I opened the binder, laying out screenshots, texts, footage. Karen removing my no trespassing cones. Karen forwarding a fake email saying I'd volunteered my driveway. Karen storming through bubbles, screaming about safety violations. And then, I passed around the pièce de résistance. A still image of Karen, mid-slide, arms flailing as she launched toward the glitter-filled kiddie pool. Silence. Then, snickers. Then, full-blown laughter. Even one of her bored allies cracked a smile before quickly covering it with a cough. Karen stood up, trembling with rage. You think this is funny? I gave everything to this community, a voice from the back shouted. Nobody asked you to. Gasps. Applause. Karen's voice cracked. This is a smear campaign. I was trying to make the neighborhood beautiful. Callahan cleared his throat. And now we vote. One by one, hands went up. Yes, yes, yes. Even Karen's closest ally hesitated, looked around, and finally raised her hand. It was unanimous. Karen was done, stripped of her title, her power, her clipboard privileges. She stood frozen, lips parted, blinking like her brain had blue-screened. Then, with the last shred of drama she could muster, she whispered, You'll regret this, and stormed out, stilettos clicking against the tile like a defeated villain leaving the final scene. As the door slammed, Destiny, the flamingo, propped on someone's folding chair as a silent mascot, wobbled slightly in the breeze from her exit. And we all exhaled. That night, neighbors lingered in the parking lot, laughing, sharing stories, planning actual voluntary community events. Someone even brought up Foam Fest 2.0. I didn't say much, just stood beside my truck, took a deep breath, and smiled at the stars above my now drama-free driveway. Because we'd done it. We took down the queen of HOA chaos, and all it took was truth, soap, and a flamingo. Part 7. The letter she never sent and the legend she accidentally created. 2 days after the vote, an envelope appeared on my porch. Plain, white, no return address. But something about it felt familiar. The handwriting on the front read only one word. Sorry. I stared at it, then slowly picked it up, like it might explode into glitter or gaslighting. I brought it inside, sat at the kitchen tables, and peeled it open carefully. Inside was a letter. Not typed, not official, just handwritten, and for once, it wasn't on HOA letterhead. Jake, you win. I thought I could manage everything, keep things perfect, control it all. I was wrong. This wasn't just about a wedding, it was about me needing everything to go my way. And when it didn't, I made it worse. You didn't yell. You didn't fight, you just let the truth speak for itself. That was worse than any punishment you could have given me. I'm stepping back, not because I was voted out, but because I don't know who I am without the clipboard. Tell Destiny I'm sorry about the glitter. Karen. I sat there, blinking at the page. No sarcasm, no threat, no clause. 8B. Just honesty. And in that moment, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. Because maybe, just maybe, the woman who once turned my life into a pastel nightmare had finally seen what the rest of us saw. The next day, I laminated the letter, pinned it up in my garage, right next to a framed screenshot of her mid-slide, arms flailing like a panicked ballerina on a soap-covered stage. We all heal in different ways. The neighborhood? Oh. It was glowing. Kids rode scooters down the sidewalk without fear of violating decorum. Neighbors waved more, smiled longer. One guy even repainted his mailbox, bright orange. Nobody said a word. And the slip and slide? It had become legend. They started calling it the soakening. Doug made t-shirts. Someone made a meme page. And Destiny, still floating proudly in my backyard, sunglasses on, tiny crown strapped to her inflatable head. Because in a world full of rules, sometimes a little rebellion is what saves the whole block. Part 8. Viral Justice. When Karen's fall went global. I woke up the next morning to chaos. Not from Karen. Not from the HOA. But from my phone. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Text messages. Tags, mentions, notifications pouring in like a broken sprinkler line. Leo, my tech-savvy cousin, had uploaded the footage from the wedding disaster the night before. The entire slip-and-slide saga in glorious 1080p. He even had drone shots of Karen soaring midair like a furious pastel torpedo. The video title? HOA Karen turns wedding into wipeout, instant karma on a driveway near you. The thumbnail? Karen, frozen mid-scream, heels airborne, glitter flying like confetti from an emotional meltdown. I clicked play. It was better than I remembered. The shriek. The bouquet stuck to her face. The DJ accidentally triggering the bass-boosted remix of Wipeout. And then, Karen's full body slide into the bubble-filled kiddie pool like she was auditioning for an Olympic comedy dive. The views? Over 200,000 by the time I finished my cereal. Leo texted, "Bro, you're famous. People are making GIFs." I opened Reddit. There it was, one thread titled, "This HOA Karen got what she deserved an E." And it's beautiful. Another? The wedding slip heard around the cul-de-sac. There were memes, animations. Someone even dubbed Karen's scream into a dubstep drop. The one that made me spit coffee, a slowed-down version of her fall. Synced perfectly to the Titanic theme. And the comments? Justice has never been so slippery. This guy is the Batman of suburban neighborhoods. I aspire to be this level of petty, respectfully. But it didn't stop there. Local news caught wind. A reporter showed up the next afternoon, mic in hand, cameraman in tow. He asked for a statement. I said I'd do it. Under one condition, they had to feature the animal shelter too. So, we stood there. Me, the shelter volunteers, a couple of still wet folding chairs behind us, while Destiny the flamingo floated lazily in the background, like a war general surveying her soap-slicked kingdom. The segment aired that night. Karen didn't appear, didn't speak. In fact, no one had seen her since the Fomageddon. Her porch light stayed off, curtains drawn, driveway empty. But the neighborhood, it was alive. Kids chalked smiley faces on the sidewalk. Neighbors shared lemonade instead of HOA complaints. Even Doug wore a shirt that said, "I survived the great wedding splash of 2025. And every time someone mentioned the video, they smiled. Because Karen's downfall wasn't just hilarious, it was cathartic. We weren't just watching a wedding flop. We were watching the death of HOA tyranny, one glitter-soaked slide at a time. Part 9. The vote that ended. The HOA wasn't exactly known for moving fast. Normally, it took them 2 weeks just to approve a lawn gnome. But this time, things moved fast. By Monday morning, just 2 days after Karen's viral nosedive into the suds, an email hit every homeowner's inbox. Emergency HO meeting. Topic: Board Conduct Review. You could practically hear the whispers echoing through the cul-de-sac. And just like that, the countdown began. By Friday, the community center was packed. Neighbors who hadn't shown up in years were there, folding chairs in hand, snacks in their laps, grins on their faces. It didn't feel like a board meeting. It felt like a trial. And sitting at the front was Karen. Head high, arms crossed, wearing black like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. The HOA president, Mr. Linwood, bless his khaki soul, opened the floor. "Thank you all for coming," he said, voice steady. "We're here to address multiple complaints of board misconduct and misuse of community authority." Karen didn't flinch, but the room, buzzing. Linwood continued. "Specifically, the unauthorized use of private property, the misrepresentation of homeowner consent, and the public incident which has now been viewed online over 800,000 times. I saw Karen's eye twitch at that number. He looked at her, then at the crowd, then at me. "Jake, would you like to speak?" I stood slowly. No theatrics, no anger, just truth. "I didn't want this," I began. "I didn't plan for chaos. I just asked for basic respect, for boundaries." I turned to Karen, who was suddenly very interested in her clipboard. "You didn't just take over my driveway. You lied. You faked a volunteer message. You used the neighborhood like it was your stage." Then I held up the HOA newsletter, the one with her fabricated quote from me. "And when things went wrong, you tried to blame me." Silence. Even the snack crinklers had stopped moving. One board member, Marla, the strict one with the cat sweaters, leaned forward and said, "Karen, did Jake give you written permission?" Karen opened her mouth, paused, then mumbled, "I left him a note." Linwood sighed. "No record of a note. And we have video evidence that you removed his no trespassing signs." Karen's voice sharpened. "It was for the community. It was a celebration." Marla raised an eyebrow. "For your daughter, not a sanctioned HOA event." That's when Linwood folded his hands. "I'm calling for a vote," he said, effective immediately to suspend Karen Simmons from all HOA leadership responsibilities, pending review for permanent removal. Hands went up. 1, 2. Then, everyone. Even her 2 loyal clipboard crew members hesitated, and then raised theirs. Unanimous. Karen's face turned, something between a volcano and a deflated balloon. "This is outrageous," she snapped. "I built this neighborhood." Someone from the back whispered, "You bullied it." Karen froze, and for the first time since I moved in, she looked small, powerless, human. She stood up, snatched her clipboard, and stormed out without another word. No threats, no lawsuit promises, no signature smirks, just the sound of heels squelching against old soap residue. Linwood turned back to us. "We'll begin nominations for a new chair next week," he said. "Until then, let's enjoy our neighborhood again." And we did. As I stepped outside, someone tapped my shoulder and handed me a sticker. A cartoon, Karen mid-slide, bouquet flying. Underneath it, bold letters read, "Respect the driveway." I laughed, not out of cruelty, but because I knew Karen's reign was finally over. And justice, it came, with soap, truth, and just the right amount of foam. Part 10. The letter. She never meant to send it arrived on a Tuesday. No fanfare, no knock at the door, just a plain white envelope slipped under my welcome mat. No name, no return address, just one word scrawled across the front in rushed, shaky cursive. "Sorry." I almost stepped on it with my boots. At first, I thought it was a prank, maybe another passive-aggressive HOA notice. But when I flipped it over, I saw the faint imprint of a crushed HOA seal, like someone had pressed it into the paper with regret instead of ink. My gut twisted. I knew who it was from. I brought it inside, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at it for a while. Then I opened it. Inside, a single sheet of lined notebook paper, handwritten. No greeting, no closing. Just this: "You win." I don't know when it all went wrong, but I guess it started the moment I believed I was in charge of everything. The rules, the image, the neighborhood, your driveway. I thought if everything looked perfect, it was perfect. But it wasn't. And when you didn't fight me with yelling or threats, when you just stood there calm while my daughter slid through foam and glitter, that's when it hit me. I didn't just lose control of a party. I lost the respect of everyone who used to wave at me on the sidewalk. I used to think the HOA was my kingdom. But it turns out, you can't rule people who are tired of being ruled. I'm stepping away, not because of the vote, because I need to find out who I am when I'm not holding a clipboard and barking orders. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know you were right. P.S. The pressure washer was overkill, but also kind of brilliant. I let the paper fall to the table, sat there in silence. There wasn't a single insult, no veiled threats, no legal jargon, just honesty. And maybe a little surrender. It wasn't a redemption arc, not yet, but it was a crack in the armor. The clipboard queen had finally dropped the act. I didn't frame the letter, didn't gloat, I just folded it once. Tucked it inside the binder labeled "Slip and Slide, Evidence plus Memes," and smiled. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't a viral video or a foam cannon. It's watching someone finally see themselves clearly. When all the bubbles settle. Part 11. Freedom Fest returns. 1 week later. The sun rose over our street with a kind of warmth I hadn't felt in years. The air smelled like trimmed grass and freedom. No HOA memos, no pastel blazers, no tension humming in the background like a broken fridge. Just peace and possibility. And that's when the messages started rolling in. Doug texted first. "What do you say we bring the bubbles back?" Then Jordan, the DJ with the foam cannon and criminally loud subwoofers. "I upgraded the system. It now shoots foam and confetti. Just say the word." And finally, someone from 3 streets over I barely even knew messaged. "Heard your driveway is where fun lives. Can we crash the party?" That's when I realized this wasn't about me anymore. This was about the whole neighborhood, the ones who'd been bossed around, fined over mailbox colors, shamed over front yard flamingos. This was for the community Karen tried to control. So I made one post in the neighborhood group. Freedom Fest, Saturday, foam, music, puppies and peace, all welcome, no clipboards. By 10 a.m. that morning, my driveway was packed. But this time, no folding altars, no wedding DJs, no entitlement, just kids chasing bubbles, dogs wagging their tails, and neighbors laughing like they hadn't in years. Someone brought a taco truck. Another set up a lemonade stand called Karen's Tears. $1 a cup. Doug wore a tank top that said, "I survived the ho-pocalypse." Brenda showed up off duty with brownies and a lawn chair. Even the bride, yes, that bride, came by. She'd cut her hair, wore sneakers, and smiled like someone finally exhaled after holding her breath for too long. She handed me a cupcake and said, "I never wanted the wedding to be that way. Thanks for setting me free from it." And I just nodded. Because sometimes the loudest apology is the quiet moment when someone simply shows up different. We danced, we slipped, we got drenched in foam. Someone rigged up a projector and played slow-mo replays of Karen's fall over the garage wall. Even she didn't come out to stop it, just peeked once through her curtains, then vanished. And honestly, that was enough. By sunset, the music slowed, the foam faded, and neighbors lingered. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. We'd been through a war of glitter, soap, and stubbornness, and somehow came out laughing. Not everyone stayed till the end, but those who did, they helped me clean up, rolled hoses, picked up cups, hugged each other goodbye. It felt like closure, and something even better, a beginning. Part 12. Karen's quiet. Goodbye. 3 days after Freedom Fest 2.0, the strangest thing happened. Karen's porch light flicked on. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, that light glowed quietly in the dusk. No HOA clipboard, no stern voice echoing down the block. Just that little light and silence. And then, the next morning, she was gone. It wasn't loud or dramatic. No moving trucks, no police, no HOA confrontation, just a small white car parked out front, a few suitcases, and a single flamingo lawn ornament left in the grass, tilted, as if bowing. Doug was the one who told me. "Karen left at sunrise," he said, sipping his coffee on his porch. "No goodbyes, no flyers, just vanished." At first, I thought it was a prank. But when I walked past her yard that afternoon, the porch was empty, windows bare, mailbox taped shut, and a small envelope stuck in the screen door of my house. I pulled it off slowly. No name, no return address, just one word written in delicate cursive. Enough. Inside was a short note. No threats, no legal jargon, no uppercase rants about bylaws, just this. I thought control made me strong, but I only built walls. Thank you for tearing them down. Even if it took soap, foam, and a fall I'll never live down. I'm moving to stay with my sister for a while. I think I need to figure out who I am without the HOA. P.S. Don't let destiny deflate. She kinda grew on me. I stood there, reading those words over and over. And I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just exhaled. Because in that moment I realized Karen didn't need to lose. She needed to let go. She needed someone to show her that power isn't in rules or clipboards or glitter-covered ceremonies. It's in community. And sometimes community needs a guy with a garden hose and a ridiculous amount of bubble foam to remind everyone where the line is drawn. That night, I set Destiny afloat in the pool one more time. Put on a soft playlist, lit a citronella candle, and sat on my porch as the breeze rolled by, gentle, clean, free. No more shouting, no more property wars, no more Karen, just a neighborhood finally breathing easy again. And as the moonlight shimmered across the driveway, my driveway, I whispered to myself, "Let them dance." Epilogue. 1 year later. It's been exactly 1 year since the infamous slip-and-slide showdown. The tarp is long gone. The foam? Just a memory. But the laughter? That stuck around. Every now and then, someone walks past my driveway, taps their shoe against the concrete, and smirks. Doug still calls it the day the music slipped. Brenda drops by with brownies and jokes about starting a neighborhood wrestling league in soap. And Destiny still floats proudly in my pool, wearing sunglasses and a tiny cape that says, "I survived Karen." As for me, I've got peace. No more surprise weddings, no more fake HOA notes. Just neighbors' music and the quiet comfort of knowing. When someone tries to turn your life into their spotlight, sometimes all you need is a hose, some soap, and the guts to let them fall.